Hello, welcome back. I am Charles Musgrove, your host of the Answers That Count podcast, and thank you for joining us again. Do me a favor, because we're going to have a great show today. We're going to talk about money, investment, and how women invest, and how Bayview Private Wealth has catered their business to help the women investors. So stay tuned. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so that it can be shared so that more people will see that. So welcome back to the show, Mark Dutram. Thank you so much for joining us.
I love it. No, thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
I had a chance to do the podcast Answers That Don't Count, but I said, no, I want
Right,
to do
good.
the Answers That Count.
The answers count here. So we're going to talk about something in your practice. So before we get started in that, I want to give you the opportunity just to describe how your practice is set up and where you're located and what you cater to as far as your clientele.
I love it. About 2 years ago, I've been in this business for about 30 years. We decided to build kind of a boutique. At one point, Charles, we had over 400 clients, and we said,
that's a lot.
Yeah, there's no way you can have deep relationships with 400 people. So we shrunk it down. We said we'll work with no more than 100 families. Well, they ended up being kind of throughout the United States, but we thought it was going to be in the panhandle of Florida. But we kept it small. So now we could have, again, meaningful decision-making help on everything from estate planning to taxes to investments to just kind of walking along them with life. I mean, I think of all the different things of why people call us, for financing. Should I buy this? Should I sell that? And we just love to be what we call part of the family.
Yeah, and it's you described that so well that the financial manager, the financial advisor is such a key component in that. Just how that family plans for the future, what they spend their money on, how they invest, and it really provides, if they have a good advisor, that allows them to provides a peace of mind and allows the family to feel like they're set for what happens in the future and not fret over the market ups and downs, because believe me, there's a lot of news out there all the time, and most of the news is bad. We're always worried about what's going to happen. What's going to happen in the stock market where most people have their investments. Are they invested in the right place? Are they invested in the wrong place? So if they're doing self-investment, then that probably causes a lot more worry and concern. And your practice is set up that really is, like you said, a boutique practice, and it really allows your team to work closely with clients and not try to have quantity isn't as important as quality. So you provide that quality service. So I applaud you for that, and that's really needed in the marketplace.
Well, kind of like your company, you talk about this personal CFO. That's
right.
What we kind of see ourselves.
Right.
As a personal CFO, and again, we want to know everything. It's more than just the numbers. We want to know their family, their hopes, their dreams, their concerns. We know their pets. We know their favorite drinks. We know their favorite restaurants. Yeah, we try to be everything that we can for them.
Yeah, John, that is for something else there, so take that off. So let's, we talked about how you have different buckets of niches in your practice group. So one of those that we've talked about and we want to really highlight today is women. So women, that's a totally different niche market, how you cater to the services that you provide to make sure that they're provided the best service that they can, because they do make decisions differently than males do. And a lot of times the male and female come together as a couple to do the planning. So just walk through that. And I know you've got a personal story to share on that too. Why the focus on women as a special category in your practice?
I love that. I mean, you just talked about even emotional, right? How not a great way to invest, especially with our emotions, because we tend to buy high, sell low, and we're driven by that, and we know that it steals returns. And so just in doing this for 30 years, typically we would have clients sitting in front of us, and we might see mom disengage from the conversation, right? And not from a capacity issue. Obviously, women are smarter than we are, I think, and my wife is from me anyway, so I know.
I always tell people that my wife is the smartest of the two of us. So, but it's interesting, even in that dynamic, as you're describing, the women a lot of times take a back seat, and the males, the husbands, make the investment decision. They engage with the financial planner to make those decisions. Not that they're excluding the wife, but that's just kind of, I think, how it's happened traditionally.
Yeah, I mean, so it has to do with an interest, right? So women, again, emotional, but they don't necessarily like pie charts, right? They don't
Right.
like a lot of these kind of things, and then perceptions about the finance industry, and historically it has been a man-dominated space, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, just observing over time, and then really just started kind of digging into the statistics and looking at how women perceive the industry, why they don't, and then even the effects of them in the workforce and their longevity and all of the different changes that are happening. And then, like you said, personally, I unfortunately was a young man, have 4 siblings, and so my mom and dad divorced when I was really young,
Mm.
and so my mom raised 5 children on her own. Had 2 jobs in many circumstances, and so I mean,
That's an
it
incredible
had
challenge.
oh my gosh, I don't know how she did it. She's an incredibly matter of fact. She's almost 90 now. She'll turn
Wow.
90 coming up. Just an incredible lady and great diligence. But I wish she would have had somebody, to walk with her through the whole process of managing money and becoming independent, and yeah, it's just a whole world. So yeah, we've dedicated some of our practice now towards a niche of women. How do we service them in a better capacity? How do we engage them? How do we educate them? And then also we'll talk about this whole movement called Stronghold Money, which is
Yeah, let's go.
we're an
Let's go to
ambassador for
that
that.
because the Strong Her Money. That is. Tell me a little bit about that. But that's a group that also is focused on money investing for women. So how did you become affiliated with that group? And
I love
what
that.
is that?
Yeah. So again, one of our partners out of Birmingham, RFG Advisory, great group. And matter of fact, their president Shannon Spotswood. If you go to the website, but they said the same thing. Yeah, but that women are being underserved, either from an education standpoint, from an engagement standpoint, and then the necessity, right, of helping them because of their longevity. Again, 80% of women will end up passing away alone because they
Wow.
outlive us, right?
Mark, I don't. I want to make sure that we hit that. That's such an astounding number that 80% of the women will outlive the man in the relationship. And if you go back, who's making those? Who's most engaged in making those initial decisions and investments is typically the male part of that, but yet the female outlives the male 80% of the time. That's incredible.
80% of the time. Well, actually, kind of a funny thing is that if in a couple, if the woman passes away, the man lives shorter.
Of course,
In a couple,
need...
if the man passes away, the woman lives an average of 15 more years. They
Wow.
live longer.
Yeah.
And the reason is we stress them out.
Exactly. Yeah. And we rely on the women.
And they take care of us. They take care of us. Yeah. But anyway, so they through RFG Advisory, they have many different advisors all over the country, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we decided to partner up with them and become an ambassador to help bring information and engagement. And so we do, client education events and things like that for women throughout the Panhandle. Other advisors are doing it throughout the country. This website actually has a knowledge base where people can go and engage and answer questions or ask questions even. But to try to break down these barriers. So, I applaud RFG for being a huge part of actually helping build the site. And I applaud all the advisors who have become ambassadors of this movement to
Right.
help women become more financially independent, more financially educated. And again, it has nothing to do with capacity, as we always say, right? It's just a matter of them either have delegated this service to like
Right.
the spouse, and then, how do we, create data or create language that's still interesting to them.
Yeah.
Right? And do that.
And my guess is that if you look traditionally at the language on how that financial information is communicated, it's probably in, not to use a goofy word, but it's probably man languaged, or it has a lot of it caters to the male side.
Very much so. I mean, I even find myself doing that, and I try to tell couples, hey, if I ever speak in a way that, you feel like, hey, is lingo too many?
Right.
You know, even with different industries, you have
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of
In
specific.
accounting, we can get into that. It's like too much. You're geeking out too much on the
Exactly.
accounting language.
So speak to me in terms of simplicity that I can understand this. As a matter of fact, we know that women typically won't invest in things they don't understand, right? And so we know that women have a lot less even invested in markets and things like that. So to try to speak in terms that, and I like I said, I'm guilty of that even for guys. You know, you might just start talking about asset allocation and diversification and correlation, all these kind of
And a lot of times it's not
terms.
that it's simpler. It's just it's different. It's not that
Yeah.
you're speaking in a more simple language. It's just different. I mean, maybe I relate to Excel spreadsheets and somebody else relates to pie charts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's a great, my wife is that way. If I bring her a spreadsheet, she's gonna, she's gonna disengage.
Right.
If I bring her a pie chart though, she said, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
I can kind of, I'll get it. So people learn differently, don't
Yeah,
they?
my wife will do the computer coding, and I can explain something, I would say like a picture, and she's technical enough to take it and turn it into a formula. So, that again is just different languages to different people.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think probably women advisors, we need more women advisors because,
Absolutely.
again, they're more emotional, they're more engaging, they're more sensitive. And so I think they do a better job because, again, the better we understand our clients and we know really what their hopes and dreams are, we get them to open up and we can communicate with them, the more successful everybody will be. Right.
You had some interesting statistics that it's not on a screenshot, but it's in the computer on the language that's communicated and some other reasons that kind of point you in the direction. Okay, we need to really focus on delivering our service to women.
Yeah, I mean, New York Life did a study, and I think this was 2018, but they asked women, and they kind of got perceptions,
Right.
Perceptions about advisors, about the industry, and roughly 40% of women felt like that financial advisors treated them differently.
40%.
That's a huge number, right?
Yeah.
And then we even see that in the office where sometimes, if John and Mary come in and Mary's kind of disengaged, you have an obligation then to try to get her engaged in that process because, again, she's making a lot of decisions, will be affected by those decisions for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly, a third of them felt patronized by financial advisors, right? That they spoke down to them. And then, again, roughly a third of them felt like they were not included in the financial conversations, right?
Yeah.
So, John and Mary come in and, they're engaged with John, but
Right.
not Mary. So
Yeah.
there has to be a conscious effort to really break down some of those barriers.
Yeah, I think that is very important to acknowledge that exists, and what you've done in partnering with Stronghold Money is to really break down those barriers and make sure you address it and you acknowledge it, and let's fix it. Let's fix how we're communicating, how we're delivering that service to the female that comes into our office. So I think that's very good.
I mean, and look at what's happening in the world today, right? I mean, women are living longer, right? They're now in more management positions. I think there's roughly now 12 million companies that are owned by women in the U.S. They control a lot of the net worth in the world. So that's kind of scary then if they're living longer, they're controlling more, they have more management positions, but yet they don't feel engaged in financial decision making and investments and yeah, they're like I said, they think about very different things than men. You and I want returns, right? We look a lot more about investments, but they think more about legacy planning. They think more about what we call a sandwich generation. Is mom going to end up needing care? Am I going to need care? And my kids, do I want to leave them an inheritance if something happens to me? And so they're very thoughtful in their focus.
I think it's a very needed component in that planning mix, that it's not just what the male spouse wants, but get that mix and you get a better blend, a better result.
Yeah.
Mark, this chart that's up now, or this page shows that 51% of the stock market wealth is controlled by women. So
yep.
We may have had another statistic that shows a less amount of females are engaged in the planning process. But if you look at this, 51% of the stock market wealth is controlled by women. So they may be fewer in numbers, but they're greater in the wealth.
Yep. So they delegate a lot of it too, you know.
Right.
So to John, they'll delegate that capability. They say, hey, you know, either I teach or I nurse or I do whatever. I'm going to let, you know, him take that over and manage that. And so not a good choice because, again, collaborative is probably the best. I think God gave us that gift of each
Right.
other, right?
Exactly.
That we balance each other out. And I know, you know, again, women's intuition a lot of times would have helped me a lot in listening to my bride, again, with different.
Well, it's like one of the things that you preach is asset allocation. So we're allocating the brain power on how this is invested. So
I love that.
Two are better than one.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Well, but then, you know, you look, unfortunately, a sad statistic is that, you know, you have roughly a 50% divorce rate in the country, right? And so if that ends up happening, now, again, the woman is now the CFO of the household, right?
Right.
And if she has not been engaging with an advisor or she has not been educating herself on all of this different lingo, like you just said, asset allocation and diversification and, you know, income planning and things like that. And so making sure that they are, feel fully capable of filling those shoes is so important. As the screen kind of shows there too.
Absolutely,
they live longer, right? And so.
Yeah, we had there. You talked about it before that 80% of the women outlive the men in the relationship, and a woman's average life expectancy is 5 years longer than men. So that kind of underscores that as well.
Yep. I mean, fortunately, I think the you know, the pay gap is kind of shrinking, but I mean that's a sad statistic. They'll end up with about 1 million less. You know, again in retirement.
Right.
So. Yeah, a huge need just in doing this. And so this Strong Her movement in educating women, engaging them, you know, like I said, even widows.
Right.
Very sad statistics on widows. I think there'll be about 1 million more widows every year. So this baby boomer generation, as it ages, right?
Yeah.
As we say, they predecease, they're going to be out there now. And the other sad part is if you don't know, right? You're more susceptible then to being taken advantage of.
Right.
And unfortunately, again, where there's money and there's greed and motivation, we see people, again, move into that space and take advantage of people. Not only women, but men in you know, whoever is, again, not capable of understanding certain types of investments and things. Yes, you could be, and we see that all the time.
Very interesting. So how does your firm connect with Stronghold Money?
Yep.
So is it a referral basis? How does that work? I know you mentioned that they have other investment managers that they work with as well.
Yeah. So the knowledge base, again, we're sharing information back and forth about these types of statistics and how you successfully engage. We collaborate with other advisors on things that they're doing to increase the engagement and the success rate. So we do a lot of community events, community education, where, again, we're bringing women in. And a lot of times we'll bring like a tax expert, an estate planning expert, and we'll kind of collaborate together in this whole thing. And then we just kind of open it up. And it's usually fun. You know, we had chocolate and wine, I think, the last time. Who doesn't like chocolate and
exactly.
Wine? Yeah. But just come in and hopefully a lot of it is question driven. What are the things that might intimidate you? Or what are the things that maybe you need more education on? Is it mutual funds? Is it exchange traded funds? Is it stocks? Is it, you know, planning? So we also know that through different stages of life, early, mid, late stages, they have different thoughts and different things that they concern about, right, with women. So, just the content, the collaboration with other advisors. And then what happens is if women go to this site, this Strong Her site that you actually see here, they can not only get knowledge base, but based on where they're engaging from, they could probably find an advisor that's fairly close to them.
Okay.
So they might say, wow, you know, this looks like a lot of information. I don't know if I could do this stuff on my own. I might want to engage a professional that could help me with tax or help me with estate planning. And so on there are ambassadors. And so if you were in the panhandle of Florida, you could find a Mark Dutram who is an ambassador of Strong Her Money. And then you could, you know, would give my contact information where you could call us up and set up an intro meeting or something like that.
Very good. And you've done locally, you've done workshops or work groups where you've presented information and you've hosted women focused meetings.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so we know that. So sometimes, and especially with this whole COVID thing now, right?
Right.
A lot of people, you can do Zoom meetings or more electronic type of meetings, but I do like the face to face. You know, I
Oh,
do
yeah.
like to engage and have an event where people come and do that. So yes, we do that on a quarterly basis in different places. I teach at the college, Northwest Florida State College, and it's a course that covers many different topics. You know, estate planning, tax planning, investment planning, things of that nature. And so we have, yes. Sometimes I'll call them maybe women are dragged there by their husbands, or maybe even wives drag their husbands there. But you know, again, having these couples, because we know that. I mean, you're going to be better prepared if you plan and engage and take action in learning different types of aspects of finance.
Right. So the you know, we talked about emotional investment, and that is men men and women both suffer from that. So you know, we see the markets are going up. We see what's happened recently where now we're talking inflation. So it presents a whole nother challenge for the financial manager to make sure that they're advising their clients correctly on what to do, where to put their money. So
I love that.
I know
Yeah.
your firm is very active in that too, and shift as the markets and the things shift in the market, you make changes as well.
I think, you know, whether you're a man or a woman, having some objective advice in investing is successful. And the reason is because, like I said, all these different biases that we have, cognitive dissonance bias,
Right.
here we're getting with
Oh, yeah.
terminology, confirmation bias, things of that nature. We tend to be emotionally driven, especially when it's involving money, right? And
Right.
finances. We know that we feel losses twice as bad as we feel gains, right?
Right.
And so what happens is, and again, particularly like we said, a woman, if you're more emotional about investing in money and things of that nature, you're more likely then to you know, invest in a way that may not be in your best benefit. So I think having objectives, somebody can actually step back and say, all right, what are we feeling right now? Is that real? You know, what's the likelihood of this scenario that you think is going to play out? And then how are our investments, you know, managed?
Right.
And so we know that individuals, you know, the stock market averages about 8 to 10% a year over any time period that you look at, which is actually pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
But then you look at the individual investor, and their average rate of return over the past 20 years is about 3%.
Wow.
So why is that? And the reason is, again, we tend to be like right now, as you know, people are throwing money at you and trying to add to the market because the market's been fantastic.
Right. Right.
And but we also know the market is very expensive right now.
Yeah, it is, and it's if you haven't watched the video earlier that we did with Mark, go back and watch that because he really provides a good framework for the objective investing and breaks it up into the 5-year increments. And it's, even though the market may be scary right now, it may seem frothy and that it's about to collapse, there's still appropriate investments given the time of the market right now. So don't be afraid of that. Make sure that you consult with professionals when you're entering the market now, especially. And it really, this time of the market, this is probably you probably hear this all the time, but there's never a wrong time not to have an investor. You always, investment advisor, you always want to have somebody professionally advising you on what to invest because the market can always take a turn that you don't expect.
I mean, 87% of high net worth people have an advisor. Why would they do that? Again, because things can get complicated, right? They, again, want to make sure that they are good stewards of the assets that they have, right? And then, like, there are things that we buy that you could not buy on your own, right? And so it kind of opens up an entirely different world. And then, as we talked about on the show, we have technology that
Right.
can either stress test and again, a great thing with women like to see some type of, they want to know where they are in the process. Am I on track? Right.
Yeah,
And
right.
so we have ways of showing Monte Carlo simulations where we do 1,000 random sampling of events that would tell them, hey, yes, you're either on track or these are some of the things that you need to do now, because as we know, time is one of our great friends in what we call, again,
The market equalizing out.
Yeah, well, I'd just say what do banks love? Banks love capitalized
Oh, yeah.
or compounding,
Right, compounding.
So that's my word
Right.
I'm looking. So as you're compounding over time, the earlier you do that, so even in my class, I love to see young women come in there, right, or young men that are now going to start applying some of these principles early,
Right.
because the greater you can do that, you'll have just
And
that
Tom
compounding.
takes out all of those ups and downs in the market as well. It tends to level out and see a nice path up in the market. So Tom does that. So if you
It
look
is
at
a great mitigator of risk, isn't it?
it is. It
Yep.
is. So yeah, and it's the other thing about if you have the couple that you're providing that advice to, maybe the scenario that I've seen before is the man becomes emotional because he has a connection with the male advisor, and the female is providing the objective. Well, let's look at this. What do the numbers say? So I've seen it work that way as well. So,
I agree.
Yeah,
I
so
definitely
go
agree.
back to let's put the two heads together, and you'll get a better result in the end.
Yep. God gave us each other because we think differently. We're emotionally driven by different things. And a great counterbalance. I often make jokes about it. A lot of times with guys, when they get to the end of life, if they can skid into the end zone with a pair of jeans on, they're happy, right? I did it right.
Yeah.
I spent what I made and I was happy. Women are not that way. They want to leave an inheritance for the next generation. They want to be a blessing to their children. And that's a good balance, right?
Absolutely.
And, especially when you don't know when you're going to pass away.
Exactly. None of us know. So be right with your Savior. So, Mark, this has been a great show, great ending to the show as well. So be right, be prepared for whenever that happens. So it's we're promised two things: death and taxes. So be prepared for both of those. So you
true.
got that information in this show today. What a great show, Mark Dutram. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We've learned a lot about your practice, how you have customized your practice to really cater to a special niche, and that's female investors. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for what you do in the community. You've been watching Answers That Count. I'm your host, Charles Musgrove. Have a great day. Have a great week. Peace.